Well, hello, paradigm shifters. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So grateful for you all. Yeah, yes. And so, yes, paradigm shifters, we are a dedicated, growing, global community dedicated to shift and uplift the planet. How's that, Charles?
I'm all in. I am all in for that.
I love it. I love it. And so in the month of February, we are 2023. We've been going at this since 2020, every Tuesday.
Can you believe it?
I love it. And we've had Charles on at the beginning of all this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, beginning of this phase of our development. And so, so February, our topic has been acceptance. Let's take a deep breath into that word. Whatever that means to you. And so I wanted to, first of all, our guest speaker for this week is Charles West, he's a HyponoCoach, best-selling author, a Broadway actor, and divine spark coaching, and so many things. But most of all, I know Charles West has that divine spark, and know something about this topic. So we're going to start off by reading this phase from this great book that I love to reference, the Alcoholics Anonymous, page 417, and it's the acceptance. So let's take a deep breath in, and if you've never heard this, great. If you've heard it a million times, great. Let's bring our full attention into these words.
And if you've heard it a million times, allow yourself to hear it anew.
Amen.
Hear something in it that you've noticed, something in it that you've never heard before.
Yeah.
That's what warriors like us do. We don't just hear that song or read that book or say that prayer that we've said 10,000 times in a rote way. No, we allow ourselves to find a new vibration in it. And then you know what that does? It allows us to accept it and align with it at a deeper level. And that uncovers and radiates your divine spark more brilliantly.
Amen. Acceptance is the answer to all my problems. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, or thing, or situation, some fact of life unacceptable to me, and I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing, happens in God's world by mistake. Until I could accept my alcoholism, for you, whatever that it is, I could not stay sober unless I accept life completely on life's terms. I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and my attitudes. So when I first read that a couple of weeks ago, I came upon a picture of Charles. And he was like this, kneeling. Well, I don't know, he was sitting there, kneeling, whatever, but with his hands folded. And the caption read, "Sometimes you just need to hit that pause button and check in with your heart." So now I can turn it over to you, Charles, because that touched me so deeply.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for reading that passage, first of all, Judy, because there are so many different lessons that when we really unpack what you read, whether you're a member of a 12-step program or not, that passage has an enormous teachings in it. I live in New York City, and, just talking about like when you first started Paradigm Shifters, and I was one of your guests early on. The journey that we all as a human society have been on in these past 3 years, so many people are no longer here. So many people's relationships and marriages are no longer together. People's recoveries and sobrieties have been shattered. And I'm so grateful to know that there are warriors like you, and there are other warriors that are watching us right now, that are out there wherever we live, holding a higher watch in whatever ways we can. You know what I mean? Because that's what it takes. Because, if I'm riding the subway in New York City, or walking down the sidewalk in Manhattan, or driving somewhere in New York, I witness, because of my own over 18 years of in my own healing journey, I notice it all. I see it all. I'm highly empathic, and I do my best not to absorb it. One thing is empaths. There's sometimes a tendency to witness it and then absorb it and then make it yours. And that's really unhealthy. And it's a trick bag not to fall into that, right? But the thing that I'm able to notice in this particular day and age, and February right now in 2023, is I witness a lot of people going around, whether I'm in LA or Chicago or Dallas or here or London, that are kind of in similar places to where I was after 9/11 happened. Because that at the time of 9/11, I lived in the Lower West Village here in New York City. And I watched both of the towers collapse from the rooftop of the apartment building where I lived. I had no tools at all to deal with not only the trauma of 9/11 that was happening and unfolding right then and living through it, but what I've discovered through the over 18 years of my healing journey is that the trauma of 9/11 was stacked on top of 40 years of untouched wounds that go way back to when I was 3, 4 years old. Even though I was raised with a lot of love from my parents in our household, there were a lot of really strict rules. Children were to be seen and not heard, especially boys. The church that I was raised in shoved some very harmful messages about this vengeful, punishing God into my subconscious mind at a very, very young age. And so I always felt that I had to hide from God, because if God is vengeful and punishing, why would I want to have a relationship with that? And so I'm grateful that I've been able to redefine the presence of the divine. And when I want to look into the eye of the divine, I'm looking at it with you right now, Judy. I see the divine in you. I see the divine when I look into my own eye. I see the divine when I look out my window right over here. And if an ambulance happens to be driving by, I send them love, and I know that they're on an urgent call right now. And so the divine that we are able to tap into when we do the courageous and hard and messy work of peeling back the layers of the onion. And this is something that actually I'm writing about in my book right now, which is called Ignite Your Divine Spark: 10 Tools to Release Anxiety, Turbocharge Your Self-Esteem, and Get Unstuck. And so I'm actually working on my book proposal to present to Hay House in a couple of months right now. And it's really exciting. And it's also teaching me even more about my own journey of acceptance. My whole life, I accepted scraps. I accepted emotional scraps, intimate scraps, communication scraps, spiritual scraps. Some of them were downright abusive, the spiritual stuff, the spiritual abuse. And it taught me in all of my first relationships, starting when I was 19 years old and then going through my 20s and my 30s, I gave scraps and I accepted scraps because we just didn't know any better. My scared little boy wounds corresponded with their angry wounds. And we did really well for a little while, but then I realized, wow, this is really dysfunctional. I don't know what this, we're just not a good match. Let's not be together, but then never do anything about the wounds. So then when 9/11 happened, I could not accept. There was no way for me to be in a place of acceptance of not only what I just witnessed, but I was completely oblivious to the 40 years of wounds that were stacked on, that were hiding beneath that trauma. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to find many different support systems to help me to survive. You know me quite well, and you know that I'm a full disclosure kind of a guy. I'm an open book because I've learned that by being able to tell all of my story and say it out loud or journal it and share it with a therapist, share it with a coach, that has been an enormous part of releasing shame. It was not possible for me to be in a place of acceptance in my life if I'm holding on to shame. But when you're in a place of shame, most of the time, you don't know it, do you? You don't know it. You reach for the alcohol, you reach for the drug, you reach for the sex, you overspend, you go on a, shopping spree that you don't need, you hide, you isolate, whatever it is. And these days, it's the cell phone addiction. I mean, it's everywhere, it's rampant, whether it's at the gym, on the subway, or people just driving around. I mean, I see it all the time. People are driving around and just, they're on their phones or crossing the street in the middle of New York City on their phones, not looking where they're going and crossing a red light and wondering, why these cars are honking at them, because if they're listening to music or they're having a conversation totally tuned out. And they're not in a place of acceptance of the reality of things. And so being able to come to a greater place of acceptance for me also has really come with an understanding that for my whole life, you know the serenity prayer very well. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. My whole life, I realized as I was going through my healing journey over the last 18 years, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can. I didn't have the wisdom to know the difference. And I was accepting things that I could have changed, right? Yeah, I know, right? I got them twisted my whole life. And I kept on fighting things that I could have just walked away. I kept accepting scraps. I kept accepting things that were unhealthy because 5-year-old Charlie was still pulling the strings back here saying, you're not worthy. You're not allowed to speak your pain. You're a man, especially you as a man. It's not okay for you to speak your fear. And I'm so grateful that I'm able to work with people these days. I had a final coaching session with a gentleman last night who was more than happy to do a testimonial video last night, and it's already on my Facebook page, of him saying, this 58-year-old gentleman, Dave, wonderful, wonderful man from New Jersey, wonderful marriage, and he lost his job that he'd had for many, many years last summer, and he went into a deep funk for months. People in his family were concerned, And lo and behold, he found his way to me. He had that consultation with me, kicking and screaming. He's just like, no, I don't want to, I'm not allowed to speak my truth. But we had our consultation. And from the very beginning, he could feel that I was able to hold and prepare a safe space for him. And he said last night that he has a presence of gratitude and spirituality in his life that he's never felt before, that he is different now. In just 3 months, that level of acceptance, he was able to tune into a deeper level of acceptance of the journey that he'd gone on with this high-powered job that he'd had for a long, long time, that was connected to messages that he received about safety and security growing up in his family, what that looked like and what his responsibilities were, right? We all have our responsibilities. And so being able to unpack and uncover the layers that are covering up our ability to be in a place of acceptance, it's something that's so easy to distract ourselves from. I mean, these days, you know, it's everybody, it's their cell phones. Everybody's just distract, you know, and there's nobody making eye contact with each other these days anymore. And, you know, I think also there needs to be a true and authentic level of emotional expression as we go through our journeys, whatever it is. Because you know that 12 years into my healing journey, I received a shocking cancer diagnosis for something that I was told by the top sarcoma specialists in the world at Memorial Sloan Kettering would be untreatable and inoperable. When the surgeon told me what he had discovered, and he could see that I was in shock, trying to process what he had just said, he excused himself and just said, you know, he could understand that I needed some space to process this. And I allowed myself to go into a space where I wept and cried. I wept and prayed for a good, I don't even know, maybe 20 minutes. I wore out the serenity prayer and I cried my face off. I wept and prayed and wept and prayed. And when all the tears were shed and prayers were said, after like 20 minutes of just letting out the fright, letting it all out, underneath all this saltiness, it was like this layer of, because I wept so powerfully. Underneath all of that was a layer, was a voice that said, Charles, you know all those spiritual muscles you've been building for the last 12 years? You know how you understand the real concept and lineup of the serenity prayer now? You're going to need to, and you're going to get to, put all of those spiritual muscles into good service for yourself now. And that voice was right. Because it was a good 3 or 4 months longer before I actually received an actual diagnosis. And then, well, guess what? It was less than a year later, you and I met in Los Angeles at a coaching conference when I realized, wow, I've received another calling in my life. And I accepted it. I accepted that, you know, I received a calling when I was a little boy with my music and singing. I'm, you know, being a classically trained singer and a Broadway performer, I've known that that has always been a calling for me. And then 6 years ago, I received another calling. And so now being a HyponoCoach and an author and, you know, working on my own book now and working with people at the beginning of the pandemic, my business skyrocketed. And I was working with clients from Tasmania to Israel to Germany to Wales, all around the US and Canada, because people were suffering. People were suffering with different manifestations of stress and anxiety in their lives. And they found their way either to my Facebook pages or my website, which is www.charleswest.co. And they watched a whole bunch of the testimonial videos on my website and saw, wow, if all of these people who've worked with this gentleman have been able to release and heal and transcend a lot of the stuff that they've been lugging around their whole lives, maybe there's hope for me too. And then I end up getting an email from them and say, hey, can I have a consultation? And I said, I would be more than happy to do that. And so I've allowed myself to accept so many things in the last several years. It's like when I first received this second calling, I was at a Dr. Joe, my very first Dr. Joe Dispenza event in Atlanta in July of 2017, deep in meditation. And I heard a voice and it said, Charles, the name of your business, it's Divine Spark Coaching. Divine Spark Coaching, Charles. And I heard it. And I was in meditations and I said, oh, internally, I said, yes, yes, yes. That's what I do. That's who I am. That's it. And I received it and I accepted it. I had no idea what actually having a business would entail. So many different aspects of forming the LLC and then building the website and all of these different things and attracting clients and doing interviews and all these things. Over the years, it's been such a blessing to be able to find even more expansive ways to show my acceptance and my gratitude to God and to the divine in others and in nature, by showing up and being a man of service.
Wow. Amen. Wow. I'm taking notes over here. I wanted to go back to one thing that you said that is just like triggered something that for me, but I've known you and I've known situations where I've watched you in action just because you're you and nothing to do with being a client and all this other stuff. And you're just like in action. And I'm like, whoa. And I'm like, and then you looked at me and says, that's what we do. And I'm like, oh, that's it. And if I'm seeing that in you, that must be that I have that in me too.
Yep.
Now, here's what you said that I was just talking to someone this morning in meditation. Meditation is like a non-negotiable for me, and I meditate with this group of people every morning. For now, it's been going on 3 years. All through pandemic, we meditated together. Anyway, one thing that she was saying that she felt is that the eye, like you said, the eye-to-eye contact, not on a screen, but out there right now. And she was saying how, I forget the word that she used, how she's, well, basically afraid.
Yeah.
To have eye-to-eye personal contact in person now. And that, because of the meditation, because, we're in all this other, not because, it's kind of, anyway, being challenging herself to leave her home where she has this relative safety and go out and actually she signed up for, I forget it was something I would never sign up for, something where she's always wanted to learn, and how now the fear is I took action because there was that yearning for that eye-to-eye contact, and now it's like, oh my God, can I really do it? All these little baby action steps. And I was just so proud of her because she felt comfortable enough to go eye to eye on a screen, and now that's the next step out there. And that's one of the things that you were saying, that emotional, the emotions of coming out and making contact with another person on the street. Yeah, these are safe. I don't
Mhm.
have to acknowledge that you even exist. I don't have to acknowledge my fear of you.
That's right.
And so I don't, I'm not accepting the fact that I have of and how beautiful that is. That's one of the things I wanted to get across. This I didn't want to get it. That when I got downloaded the thing, okay, it's good. The topic is acceptance this month because I was in a space of non-acceptance of what's going on out in the world right now. And just outside my window, we had ice storms here. I'm like total nature freak, and I'm out in the trees. The trees snapped. So many of our trees are like, and I was hearing them cry, and I just like, oh. And then I let myself feel. I think a part of this, let myself feel it, not make myself choose to go out into the woods and actually feel the sorrow.
Mm.
And I think this is like the 17th, about like, third or fourth week in February. And because I did that, I'm having all these creative ideas now
Yep.
to what
Mhm.
to do with all those branches, what to create. And but here's my, if you want to riff a little bit, I want to go from here's this and go straight into the solution without feeling.
Say more words about what you mean by solution without feeling. What does that mean to you?
I want to go straight to like going, well, everything's going to be okay, everything's fine, and then and then stuff my feelings about that, which is an old pattern for me. So, anyway, acceptance of the fact that I'm human, that I have feelings, that there's things that make me the situations are like gut-wrenching to me, and then healing. So that's part of the healing process, I think, right?
Mhm. For sure. Yeah. That's part of the whole journey of being more aware and more aligned with, when you know what it means to take a God's eye view. It's something actually that the film that Martin Scorsese would do all the time in his movies. And it's a tool that I use all the time and that I teach a lot of my clients to use as well, all the time during the course of their day. And so if you think of what you do on a particular day, just imagine you're in this Martin Scorsese film and you live in New York and you're on the subway and the camera is following you around everywhere you go, seeing and taking in all of the energy of the interactions that you're having everywhere you go. And then you're driving out a little farther out of the city and you're trying to go shopping at a mall, but then you walk around and people are being unkind and not noticing you, not appreciating you. And then all of a sudden you start taking it personally, right? You let yourself take the God's eye view, which Martin Scorsese would do, and the camera would lift up and look down at the whole scene of life that these people were a part of. And when you practice this God's eye view tool, what it does, it helps to take the emotional charge away from feeling unappreciated or unseen, or having those gut-wrenching experiences. Maybe they won't be quite as gut-wrenching. And then you end up feeling like, oh God, I'm going to have to sideline myself for the rest of the day and stuff my feelings. But when you're able to take that God's eye view and notice, you know what, all these other people are doing the best that they can right now. Can I be in a place of acceptance of that? Can I? It's hard to do. It's hard to do sometimes, but we are not in control of other people's journeys. We have no say-so. As much as, and it's hard for me, if I'm on the subway and there's people vaping on the subway, in the subway car, or rolling a joint in the subway car, sitting there in the subway with a joint in their mouth, it's really hard for me not to say something. You know, am I in an acceptance that this is okay? Most of the time, most of the time. Some of the times I also feel that one of my mentors is Ian Van Zant, besides Mary Morrissey and Marissa Peer and Tony Robbins and Joe Dispenza, all people that I've, Marianne Williamson. Ianla, she has a way of, she calls a thing a thing. Sometimes you got to call a thing, not in a place of judgment, but if there's injustice, if there's discrimination, if there's abusive behavior and disrespect that's being hurled upon anyone, I am the kind of person that will speak up and say something about it. And I do that. Listen, every single night when I pray before I go to bed, a part of the prayer that I say is, "And dear God, use me in any way that you see fit. Guide my thoughts, guide my words, guide my actions. And may I, allow me to be a shower-upper in my life. And I will, I show up, and I will not be the kind of person that doesn't notice when somebody else in my presence is hurting, and not consider whether, if there's something that I might be able to do to support them. Whether it's somebody that is homeless and I in my backpack, I carry an extra protein bar or a bottle of water. And if, and I give it to them with just, because I know that they're hungry. And so there's things that you can do from a higher level of awareness. There's the to me, for me, as me, through me, as me. And so many people right now are in this level of awareness that life is happening to them. That's what we notice. And when you're in that higher level of awareness as through me and as me, bless you, sometimes it can trigger you and make you sneeze just like that. Right? It can trigger you because we recognize what it's like to be in that place. We recognize it. We've been there. Yeah. So I want to invite everybody that's watching this to notice, use the tool of taking the God's eye view. Just imagine you're going up and you're looking at this experience of whatever it is that you may be going through in your day, and try taking the God's eye view and then journal about it. Notice what you're noticing about the God's eye view and how it feels different. Journal about that. Journal about how the God's eye view feels different than when you're in the midst of whatever it is you're going through and feeling stuck. And then also notice how in alignment with the serenity prayer you are. Say the serenity prayer for yourself and notice, am I in alignment with this? Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Do I accept the things I cannot change? And there's that part of Charles that might see like, oh yeah, 100% all the time, no problem there. But when I tell the truth, which is what I'm doing now, I don't do it 100% of the time. I don't. There's times when I see so much rampant misalignment out there, mischief and mayhem out there in the world, that there's times when I judge it. And I'm doing better. I'm getting better at not judging it. Because I know judging it does nothing to help it soften, does nothing to help it heal. So I invite everybody that's watching it to really look at the serenity prayer and see, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can. Okay, well, am I just good? Do I keep on distracting myself with my phone? Am I stuffing my feelings with food? Am I avoiding things? Right? And then allow yourself to journal about how is the presence of wisdom within me to notice the difference? Do I know the difference? When I don't know the difference, what's really going on? And then you can ask yourself this poignant question. What am I pretending I don't know? What am I pretending I don't know about this person, about the situation, about this particular dynamic or situation I'm dealing with? What am I pretending I don't know? Let that roll. You can meditate with that phrase. What am I pretending I don't know? And then journal about it.
Wow, what golden nuggets. What can I say? I'm so grateful. Wow. To be continued for
Yes.
sure. For sure. Well, so I want to take a deep breath in, and gosh, there's so much that I promise myself to go out and I journal. Like carrying around, like not just in the morning, but carrying around this journal as the day goes, as I go out there, like whoop, start, because it's, for me, it's that nightly review, like what's just happened today, and just look, oh, there's the journal, and I love that. So I want to ask you, what can we hold for you, Charles West? What can we hold for you that, thank you so much for coming. This is so perfect timing. What can we hold for you as a community of paradigm shifters, as one of our
Well,
leaders? What'd you love?
If I may ask for the community to hold for me and to support me also in this new adventure that I'm on, writing my own book, Ignite Your Divine Spark, which I had my very first session yesterday with my book writing coach. So I hired a book writing coach to that, and it was so empowering, and she was pretty darn impressed with what I shared with her. And so if I could ask people to, if you would, please go to my website and subscribe to my website, which is www.charleswest.co. And so then that way I can, whenever there's newsletters or blogs or videos that I'm posting, you can go on my website and notice any videos that I might, or posts that I might share about the book. Because I am aiming for, I'm giving it to God, and I know that whatever it is that's supposed to happen with, whether it's published by a huge publishing house or if I decide to self-publish it, it's getting out, the book is getting out there. It's definitely getting out there. Ignite Your Divine Spark, 10 tools to release anxiety, turbocharge your self-esteem, and get unstuck. And in the subtitle of that, I'm offering 3 promises to the reader that you can release anxiety, turbocharge your self-esteem, and get unstuck. And that helps to ignite your divine spark. And so I would say, please hold for me that the actual writing of the book, that I will be able to continue to channel and receive whatever it is that I'm supposed to write, that I'll receive it. I will receive it here. It will then go up to my mind, down my arm, and then out down into the pen, and I'll write it down and then put it onto my computer. And that it will just be, there will just be a flow. There will be a divine flow of the book coming out, and that it will be promoted well, and that will, ultimately, my ultimate wish is that it will touch and support people all around the world.
Beautiful. Wow. All right. You ready to receive?
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, okay. Here we
no
go.
problem receiving.
Okay. All right, everybody. Here we go. All right. Wow. Wow. Here we go. We are so thrilled so to support you and your mission. Here we go.
Yes.
And so it is.
Got it.
Wow. Thank you
Got
so
it.
much. Definitely to be continued. Wow.
Thank you, Judy.
Amazing.